Hello and welcome to Miniatures Rundown. I'm Joshua.
I'm Cody.
And today we've got a Kickstarter discussion preview for you. It's not a preview because everyone else has already previewed this. We're taking a look at Game Envy's newest wet palette Kickstarter.
Slash update.
Mitchell's not here because he's a heathen non-wet palette user.
Correct.
So we murdered him and used his body to wet our palettes. We both use a wet palette.
Yes.
It's one of my favorite tools. If you are not familiar with a wet palette, how would you describe a wet palette?
It is a palette that is wet. But no, it provides a lot of benefit.
It's a sponge.
Yeah.
Some semi-absorbent porous paper that keeps your paints hydrated for a longer period of time than using a dry palette, right?
Yeah.
If you didn't know. They're great. They're a great way to both kind of practice thinning your paints, a great way to keep your paints fresher for longer, which is really great if you're paying expensive prices for them.
Right.
And they can also be used more advancedly to like pre-create glazes, which we'll get to. So I have here my personal favorite wet palette, which is the last generation Exemplar Wet Palette from Game Envy, which is what we're discussing today.
Yes.
This wet palette that I have with my stickers on it has some nice storage in the top. It did come with a plastic wall palette as well. I just left that at home because I forgot.
Okay.
Whoops. It opens with 4 cases. It has a silicone gasket seal in here to help keep mold out.
Is kind of why this one's a little bit of a step above the rest. Like,
yes.
I use the Army Painter one, which I like. Don't get me wrong.
It is also good.
I'm not gonna bash on Army Painters, but that seal in there is kind of like the whole point.
Yeah. Well, kind of. And this is kind of a subject of debate among wet palette users, what you use it for. Personally, I very, very rarely use my wet palette to store paints for more than a single session. The use I have for my wet palette is to keep my paints alive during an extended multi-hour session. Like I'm painting for 2 hours, I put down some, a bad and black that cost me $5.50 a pot, and I don't want it to half dry before I use all of it.
Sure.
I pretty much never close up my paints and come back the next day. But some folks
I do. I don't do it as much anymore. The benefit, what you were saying, is definitely there. I did used to use a dry palette, and I have noticed that, after like 30 minutes of painting, suddenly where you're dipping your brush is dry, and that all that paint is now wasted. But back when I first started the hobby, I'd only have like, half hour, 45 minutes to paint sometimes. And then if I squirted too much out of the bottle or took too much out of the pot, all of that was basically wasted. My first wet palette was a DIY cookie sheet with paper towels and cookie paper or whatever.
From the one Uncle Adam video that everyone saw to make their first wet palette, myself included.
Precisely, and so I could paint for 35, 40 minutes, and then, I have to go do something, or I gotta go back to work, and then I'd throw the lid on it, and then tomorrow, paint would still be fresh. You'd probably have to mix it up a little bit, but saves you a lot of hassle and
just a lot of wasted paint.
Yeah.
Now, this is the last generation of Exemplar Wet Palette. They've had 2 Kickstarters previously. There was the original Kickstarter, which was, was that 2017?
Yes.
I think. That was when the company was founded, Game Envy as a company. This was one of the things that, this and the Hobby Holder kind of made their name. Right. I have the Hobby Holder. We might discuss that on another video.
Okay.
The original was made, 166 grand, you said?
Yeah, their original Kickstarter made 166 throughout the life of it.
And since then, they have done some upgrades. So, for example, the wet palette sponge I have here is a 2nd generation sponge, not a 1st generation sponge. Yeah. The paper I use also is 2nd generation paper, and it's also my favorite palette paper. This Kickstarter is expansive.
Yes.
And comes with way more options than I thought, and a lot of improvements.
Yes. That's where, I've heard a lot of good things about this one, but you'd think, it's a sponge and a piece of wax-esque paper. How can you really improve upon that? And then I read through the Kickstarter, and I was like, wow. Because
if you want to make your own, by the way, if you don't already know, first off, YouTube Tabletop Minions Wet Palette,
Yeah.
and you'll find the video on how to make your own. It's amazing. It still works. You can just take an absorbent material. It can be paper towel.
That's what mine was.
You place parchment paper on top of it, not wax paper.
Yeah, not wax paper.
Parchment paper, and then a little moisture. You can make your own. So this Kickstarter and all wet palettes that you pay for, and there are a lot nowadays.
Yes.
I think one day we might do a comparison video.
Yeah, for sure.
Are all competing with the thing you can make for $5. So worth keeping that in mind. Obviously, I have a real one and use it, so it's clear where I lie. So what does this Kickstarter actually offer over what you can go buy on Game & View right now?
Well, 3 different sizes now.
That's the big one.
Yeah.
This is a Kickstarter for 3 different wet palettes. Technically 6 different wet palettes, if you want to be technical.
Yeah.
They've introduced a newer version of this one, which is roughly the same size. It's actually a little bit bigger.
A little bit.
Roughly the same size. It says it has a better seal, a better storage compartment, for more stuff, and a better well palette that comes with it. So that's kind of the baseline. And for that, I think is what they're charging.
35.
$35 for the basic.
Yep.
Which is a little bit more than it currently costs on Game Envy. I can't talk because a dude at Dragonfall gave this to me for free. Thanks, my dude. You know who you are. I mean, you probably never watched this, but if you do, thank you. The real thing is that it comes with 2 other sizes.
Yes.
Small and large.
Yes. Very large.
So the small, let's get some measurements here, is the Exemplar Go. It is 4.5 by 9 inches. So the normal wet palette space, by the way, is 9.85 by 6.5.
Yeah, roughly.
This one is 9, so not much shorter. So they're all about 9 inches long. Although the mega size is, the mega size is still only 8.5 inches long. 8.3, so it's actually less long. But the mini one, the smaller one, is 9 inches long, but only 4.5 inches wide. So that's pretty small.
Yeah.
It still comes with a storage compartment.
Same depth. Just you can store less, obviously. The biggest turnoff of that one, and that's why I think I'm not going to back that one, because I have a limited space. That's why I haven't decided on large and extra large. Is it doesn't have the little seal on it.
So it says the air vent is located just inside the storage compartment on the Exemplar Go to save space and features. So it says it has an air vent, but it does not appear to have the adjustable air vent.
Okay. So that is a question I guess I would have for the people making it is like, so what, do you have to have like this compartment open to
so it is
vent
there.
it properly? Oh yeah, I do see
It
it.
is there, it's just kind of hidden.
Okay.
So they still do have they have a little thing here where you can open it and keep air in and out. I never use that, again, because I don't use it for that, but you do. So you can kind of regulate how much evaporation you want going on.
Yeah. See, the Army Painter one doesn't have that at all. So.
No, the Army Painter is just a nice sealing case.
Yeah.
The Mega, which is the large version, is only 8.3 inches, so it's actually shorter, but it is almost 11 inches tall.
Yeah.
So it's more like a square, and it's much wider. That one obviously has 2 mixing trays, not just one. We'll talk about the mixing trays in a moment, because I think one of them is really cool. 2 mixing trays, not one, and just a lot of space to work with. And then, of course, the middle-sized one. And now the small is how much?
The small is 25.
And the large is?
45.
Yeah. So both of these come with storage for your tools, which is really only kind of useful if you're traveling, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, this is nice storage space, but I don't really use it, as you can see, if I'm not traveling, because that's what the other area around my desk is. That being said, if you do have a limited amount of tools, you can just kind of put stuff in there and then close it.
And that's why I think the rubber gasket is, again, cooler, because if you are traveling with it, you don't have to worry about leaking in your bag if
That's my big problem with the
goes
Army Painter
sideways.
one.
Yeah.
Is it's travel sized, but there's no clamps. I don't want to turn this into where we're just dishing on the Army
Yeah.
because I have the Army
I
Painter one
use
and I
it.
like it.
I've
I
used
like
it for a
lot,
while,
actually.
yeah.
It just doesn't have that. The one thing this does come with is newer versions of the dry palette and mixing tray.
Okay.
So the mixing tray, it has brush rests to put your brushes on, which is different. And it has, I think, 8 little wells, 12 total wells. 8 of them are normal. 4 of them are, 3 of them are, slanted.
I see that, yeah.
And you can use that to make decal transfer easier.
Ooh.
The idea is that you can put the decal in the solvent or the water, mix it up, and then use that slanted surface to pick it up.
That's
and that is
actually
a
genius.
super niche use, but as somebody who has struggle bust with decals all my life, I really want to try that and make it work.
Yeah, that's actually pretty cool.
I hope they have this at Adepticon so I can try it, because that will make a big difference. Lots of other... now, they've also said that they've made their paper better.
Yeah.
In one key way. This is the first time that you can actually wipe it off and reuse it.
Yeah.
Which is big. Not permanently, because it's still going to degrade.
Yeah.
Parchment paper you cannot reuse.
No.
Most palette paper you cannot reuse, although I believe Redgrass palette paper is also noted for its reusability.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that one.
Our coworker and friend of the show, Ash, they use their Redgrass one, and what they like about it is they don't have to buy new palette paper all the time.
I see.
I really like their palette paper. I like how much it regulates. Which brings us to the next thing that is supposedly new about this, which is the dual density sponge.
Which is, I think, one of the reasons why this whole Kickstarter kind of sets this above the rest.
Now, this is they do have a dual density sponge already.
Yeah.
By the way, I should note that because you can get this currently. I don't have one. I'm probably gonna get one in Adepticon if they have them, but I might just wait for this. So the idea behind the dual density sponge is it's a sponge that is 2 sides. One side is lower density, so it holds more water.
Yeah.
The other side is higher density, so it lets less water come through while still holding the water. So it acts as a reservoir, but still lets a controlled amount through. They say that what you can do is flip it over and then use the higher density sponge on top to get more water through if you desire that for glazes, washes, or
Right.
dang boy, thick paints, right?
Right.
Scale 75s, I don't know. Yeah, I'm really curious about the sponge.
Yeah, see, that's, I guess maybe not this Kickstarter specifically, but just the brand and this wet palette, kind of setting it above the rest, because they're over-engineering even the sponge. And,
They put a lot of thought into this.
where you can go do a DIY $5 wet palette, or there's tons of them on Amazon and stuff like that for 10 to 15 bucks that you're gonna get the same thing out of it, but you're not gonna get dual-sided sponges. You're not gonna get the reusable paper. You're not going to get another engineered thing is there's little bumps on the bottom of these wet palettes that kind of raises the sponge up just a little bit, so it keeps some of that, it's a better water wicking system. There's just so much that goes into it.
It feels like they're trying to perfect the concept of the wet palette.
Yes.
Some would argue that the concept of the wet palette was perfected with paper towel and wax paper and parchment paper, right? So whether or not this works for you really depends on how much you want to put into your wet palette.
Exactly.
That being said, I feel like, especially given some of the models we buy, the middle-sized wet palette is $35, which is the cost of an average Games Workshop foot hero.
Right.
And will last you far longer. Does come in colors, purple, green, or blue. And then we get into the special edition crossovers.
Yes.
Some of these will make or break these for you. What I found interesting is that the crossovers are tied to sizes.
Yeah, that's kind of why I was just a little sad. I kind of wanted the Turbo Dork, but I wanted it in the medium size.
Right, so there's 3. There's Turbo Dork, which if you're not familiar with them, Turbo Dork makes the color shifting paints. I've never really used them, but they're quite cool in concept.
I have not used them yet either.
But Turbo Dork's logo is very vaporwave pink.
Yes,
But
I like it.
the Turbo Dork is the smallest one.
The Go size.
It also comes with their own specific silicone mixing tray, which that's the one thing that kind of upsets me about this. If you want, okay, here's our game and the Exemplar Go, but if you want the cool silicone mixing tray, you have to either buy the Turbo Dork one, which maybe, I don't know, maybe you don't look good in pink. I will say that the add-on options do have all of this cool stuff available separately.
Yes, yeah.
Which is really nice. So if you want just the Turbo Dork silicone mixing tray, but you don't want their branded wet palette, or you don't want the small wet palette, you can still get that.
Right.
The medium is the only one that is a person. It is a crossover with Ninjan. If you are not familiar with him, he is a miniature painter YouTuber. I believe award-winning. He's certainly very good.
Oh, yeah. If you're watching us, you've probably
You
heard
probably
of him.
have probably heard or watched Ninjan. He does better stuff than we do. His does look really cool.
Yes.
I love the red logo, or the red, and his comes with a texture palette.
Yeah.
If you're not familiar with what a texture palette is a dry wooden palette. The idea which is you prime it with paint, and then when you dry brush, instead of dry brushing off on paper towel, which is bad, don't do that, use cardboard or a textured surface which leaves more of the moisture in with your dry brush and prevents that chalky feature of dry brushing. I've not yet tried this, so I cannot comment on whether this is a good idea or not. That being said, from what I've seen of it, it seems to work.
I use cardboard. I haven't used the texture palette yet, which is why I'm tempted to buy this one.
It also looks really cool.
Yeah.
That being said, my personal favorite one, even though I don't actually like a lot of their models, is Creature Caster.
I think their models are cool.
I'll get to that in a second. So the Creature Caster Exemplar Mega is the big one. First off, it comes with like this amazing design. Like, the problem with Creature Caster is their models, like this design, is very over.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
I'll agree with that.
It's very extra. Creature Caster is one of those things where, what if we took a Games Workshop demon and just added more detail than any man has any right to do, and also put stonking great tits on it? They don't always do that. They kind of started with that. They've gotten away from that in a lot of their recent sculpts, which I'm a fan of. I'm not anti-sex or anything like that. We're not going to talk about this too much on the channel, but I don't like too much of that in my models, just in general. That's a me thing. Like, I wish I could get many of their demon models, but like with just like some more armor in this area.
See, I don't mind it that much, but it's one of those things I would never show up with one of those to a game sort of play. Like, if I was playing with my friends, sure, maybe. Would I paint it up to like appreciate the sculpt? Absolutely, but I'm not going to show up to a Warhammer night at a local shop and just plop it down on the table and be like, yeah.
I'll walk into the Warhammer shop. Demon down.
Exactly.
Tits out.
But
I am removed from the Warhammer shop.
Yeah, I've noticed that a lot of their models, they'll have it
they're
with
thirsty.
and without.
Yeah,
they'll have it unthirsty or...
I like the options. And by the way, I do own several Creature Caster models. I own the one that is basically a replacement for the big Juggernaut Demon engine.
Okay.
It's really cool. They do great work.
Yeah.
They also are in partnership with their own paints company, which you have tried.
Yes,
which
I have.
We've talked about a little bit on the channel. You have specifically.
Yeah.
It's the Cuttlefish colors, which I still need to try. I need to borrow your Cuttlefish colors.
Yeah, for sure.
Bring them tomorrow.
I used a little bit of them on my Uthek
yes, you did.
video.
And that Uthek turned out very well, so I'm curious to use them. They also have their own game called Judgment, I think, which is kind of like a skirmish game where you can... and I bring that up because in addition to the cool palette, theirs also comes with $50 of Creature Caster STLs to print with however you like, presumably with a personal license, not a commercial one.
Right.
Which I think is cool. That is my favorite palette though, because yeah, it's extra, but like, it's really cool looking.
Yeah. I mean, you don't have to paint all of those.
No,
all of those details.
I must color in my palette.
Oh yeah. Coloring book level expert.
And they kind of buried the lead on this part. Because in addition to the wet palettes, the thing that they're kind of known for, they're also releasing a hobby light.
Yeah.
They're not the first to do this.
No.
I think Redgrass Games kind of led the charge in this as far as like branded hobby lights made for and by branded companies.
Yeah.
Well, okay. They led the charge in ones that are actually not just rebranded lights. Because there's lots of those.
Yeah.
There's lots of companies that will sell you a light. I'm surprised there is no Games Workshop lamp.
Don't give them any ideas.
It's... Okay, but what if it was like a Space Marine holding a flashlight? And it would be awful. Anyway. Redgrass released their games light, I think, last year. Ninjan actually did a collaboration with them on that and did a video for them, which is where I saw about it. That light was $210, I think.
It was around there, yeah.
It looked really cool. It was a the idea was it was a dual band light so that your light's coming from multiple directions. So you don't have shadows that you don't want on your miniature.
Right.
A good hobby light is one that doesn't cast shadows that you don't put there with your paintbrush. In general.
Yeah.
And doesn't change the colors.
Right.
So this one's called the Lucent Art and Hobby Light. It is a 5 adjustable LED panel light.
Yeah.
And it's $80. So they're certainly going for more budget over Redgrass.
Yes.
Which I think is the main competitor here. Because you can get, like, I have a, oh gosh, do we have it here? We have one here. It's just like the gray shop light.
Yeah,
It's one of those line bar lights.
Yeah.
I have one of those. I got it for $30 on Amazon. Like, if you're just buying a light, you're not looking at this.
Yeah.
But you might be looking at like kind of a more hobby-specific light. So it's 1350 lumens, adjustable arms. It's only like this way, but you, in theory, could kind of adjust them to how you wanted.
Well, yeah, like at the arms here, they pivot like this, and then they pivot down. So like kind of giving you that arch, like that arch light.
You can lock your S-foils into attack position for when you're doing your run of the Death Star Trench.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can kind of like gull wing it if you want to, which is what they have here. They point out that you can pack it up and bring it to a convention, which is bold. But you could.
Yeah.
I really like that the system for attaching to tables is just a good old-fashioned 2.5-inch clamp.
Yeah, just a regular desk clamp.
Type A, 240 volt plug, blah, 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 adapters and converters, which is also good. Yeah, this is for me the most interesting part of this Kickstarter.
Yeah, it's kind of out there as far as like the rest of the Kickstarter.
Possibly because I already have this, but it feels like the fact that like the top of the Kickstarter doesn't really mention this.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're like wet palette and then suddenly light.
Exemplar Wet Palette Returns, new sizes and next-gen refills. Even in the subheader under the Kickstarter, nowhere is the art light mentioned.
No light.
It's not a stretch goal either.
Nope.
And it's not an alt goal. Like you can't, it's not a bundle goal either. Like you just can buy it separately.
Yeah.
It's interesting. I wonder if they felt that like by itself it wasn't going to succeed.
Maybe. I think it might just be one of those things like where this product's already designed and stuff like that, whereas a lot of Kickstarters, it's like, if you pay me money, I will do this thing, whereas we've already done this thing.
This is very much kind of a pre-sale Kickstarter.
Kind of,
like this thing was already made and designed.
Yeah.
They said there's going to be some at Adepticon to try, not to buy, but to try. Okay. And obviously, and there's a bunch of testimonials here, of course, from people like Ninjan, but also other painters who 3.6 moist points out of 10. Please don't ever say that. Brush for hire.
Moist points.
Stop. I'm not even someone who dislikes the word moist. There's a bunch of testimonials, but obviously they've kind of already designed and made this product.
Yeah.
This is one where you're kind of pre-ordering. Which is fine.
It's one of those things, if it didn't hit the goal, which it did,
by
a lot.
I think it did in 2.8 seconds.
Yeah. The goal was $10,000. They are currently roughly 2 days in at 136,000.
With 21 days to go and 1720 backers. So
yeah,
this is not us shilling for this because clearly they don't need us.
Right.
I did back this, by the way.
I am going to. I need to decide what I want.
You're deciding which one you want. Yeah. So I guess that kind of clears it. So I guess we should talk about why are we backing this and what are our hopes for this. I'm backing the bigger one because I do sometimes run out of space on my palette when I'm doing bigger projects.
Right.
I'm also backing it because I want the bigger storage space. I'm not backing the smaller version because the gaskets on these seal so well that the only advantage of the travel size is the travel nature. And my backpack's got room.
Right.
So I'm not worried about that.
Yeah, I mean, it's only a couple inches smaller, so I could find room for the medium size.
Yeah, it's a little smaller this horizontally, like an inch. It is significantly smaller vertically. Yeah. It will fit in some bags better, I suppose, but I'm honestly back this more because I want to try that light. Yeah. My eyes are not great. I've always struggled with lighting. My desk at home right now is one of those gray bar lamps, and then also a lamp over here and a lamp over here, just to try and like hit it from every angle.
Right.
I looked at the Redgrass one. $200+ was a pill that was a little too big to swallow.
Right.
This is kind of like, I'm kind of really hoping that they actually hit it with this Lucent Art lamp.
Yeah.
It's got all the the buzzwords and the things that they need. It's LED, it's daylight balanced, it's but the being adjustable and not a cheap POS is what I'm hoping finally gets me a light I really like.
Yeah, and it's just an affordable entry into the hobby. Like, we're already spending our money on really expensive plastic miniatures. Like, that's the thing. You see a $200 price tag and you're just kind of like, maybe it'll be in my budget eventually. But like $80, like you can't recreate that budgetly with half that. Like, if you bought 3 desk lamps to put on different sides, that's going to run you like $40-$50. Why not save the 2 extra plugs and space, honestly, for something that's actually meant to do it?
Estimated delivery is September of 2024. So September of this year, so post Gen Con, which is not that far out.
Not too bad.
That kind of makes sense for them having already probably produced much of these.
Yeah.
But not all of them, I'm sure, because they're probably going to produce to demand.
Right.
And then maybe you bring some at Gen Con to sell early or something like that. But and then you're kind of waffling between the 2 larger sizes, right?
Yeah. See, I have a small desk at home. My hobby space is literally a closet. And my desk is probably about this big. So I could probably swing something like that. The bigger one, maybe not, because I also have like shelves and stuff to store my crap. I know I don't want the smaller one, even though I do want the Turbo Dork.
Right, like that's kind of a bummer. Like, I want a pink vaporwave.
Exactly.
But I want it in this size.
But as far as upgrading from my army painter, like, yeah, it's $35 for something that you could recreate for $5 via that YouTube video. But I already bought into one. And this one just has so many upgrades, and it's around the same price.
Yeah.
Like, again, not to poo-poo on Army Painter, but their smaller palette, like, it's more around the size of the Go size of this one, and that's like $20.
It is. It's $20. Comes with 2 sponges, a whole bunch of paper refills.
Yeah, which these also come with the same amount of sponges and
Yes.
paper refills, and these are dual density sponges, and that's kind of why I'm convinced on this one. Like, mine works fine, but they've went so extra, and they've kept it around the same price as other major name brands that are in this market. Like, I think Green Stuff Worlds is like $15 to $20, but it's a smaller one. The old Army Painter one, because they did just come out with a new one that's, I think, about the size of
Oh, really?
this one.
See, I missed that.
Yeah, it's the same system. Like, they have the stacking thing, they have the brush holder, but they also have dry wells on it as well. And then just some extra brush holders. And that one's like $30 to $40, depending on where you get it, which the Pro falls right in that margin and just seemingly does so much more, or at least is promised to do so much more with their extra design in their paper, their extra design in their sponges. And I think the most thing I'm worried about is the plastic clips on this thing.
I think they're very durable.
Yeah, seeing it in person.
I carried this thing around, let me see. So I got this at my first Dragonfall, which would have been October of 2022.
Okay.
And I've had it since, and I've carried it around to that at a whole Dragonfall, Adepticon, which you remember, Gen Con, which you remember, and then this last Dragonfall. So this thing has gone through quite a few conventions for me, in addition to being my daily use palette, and this has nothing's broken yet.
Yeah. So, like, actually
Granted,
seeing
I don't
and
throw
like,
it very often.
Like, feeling the quality has reassured me, but there's also something that they mentioned in here, that all these parts are replaceable.
Yeah, you can go online to their website and actually buy, like, you can buy these clamps, and you can actually...
Yeah, pop them off and just replace
You can pop that off. And it's turning into an Exemplar game advertisement.
I know. Well,
I actually forgot you could do that. So, like, yeah, if this does break, you can pop it off. You can buy the lid separately. I will say that I did buy a bunch of their hobby paint holders, their racks, recently.
Yeah.
And one of them had a a duplicate part that instead of a part I needed, and their customer service mailed me the other one for free with very little. They just said, hey, please describe exactly which one you want, and we'll mail it to you. So they've got good customer service, I guess.
Right.
And I've of course decided, the reason I bought those is because I was happy with this.
Yeah. But like I was already planning on potentially upgrading to the larger army painter one, and then we stumbled upon this, and I think I'm sold.
The only downside is you gotta wait till September.
Yeah. My other one will last until then.
Yeah, and mine will last in. And then what am I gonna do with this? I guess this will become my travel one.
Or maybe I'll just buy one of these and then.
Yeah. What I'll probably do is do what someone did for me, which is bequeath this to somebody else. Yeah. I'll pass it along, and because it's made of plastic, it'll outlive all of us.
Right.
Or end up in the veins of some millennial, I don't know. Microplastics, jokes.
Turtle will eat it.
Oh, I was supposed to say I was going happy, but anyway.
Yeah.
There's one other thing. They do describe these, which is these little copper holders. You put them on the side. They're not necessary. I like them because I get impatient about the things of my wet palette curling up. Yeah. They're touted as having antimicrobial properties. Dubious, like copper does in theory. If you're treating your wet palette correctly, you need copper to stop microbes. Yeah. But you can get them, and they're cheap.
I'm one of the people that use it for the longevity, like multiple paint sessions, and I've never had mold a single time.
Right.
Like as long as you're not keeping it for months and months and months, which I've accidentally done it for like a month and I still didn't have mold.
Mold also happens if you like your brush. Don't like your brush.
I don't like my brush.
No, but
I'm not one of those.
Yeah, that actually is a causing factor of mold in wet palettes.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's it from us today. Hopefully, maybe we've given you a little more to think about if you were kind of on the fence about this, or if you just hadn't heard about it, because I only heard about it when someone in a Discord messaged me.
Yeah, and I heard about it from Josh.
And now I've backed it because I am a consumer bleep. But
capitalism, baby.
Space. We'll see you next time we have any kind of product review or Kickstarter announcement. Until then,
bye.